this lab, we're going to use ChatGPT to help us figure out the profitability by product. Sometimes we call that an SKU. Specifically, we're trying to determine the distribution of profits and profit margins for our product list, essentially. So let's go ahead and open the data. And so let's go ahead and upload that and click on the appropriate file. Looks like it's read it in. And so this looks like the SKUs, the description, and the sales price. Okay, so we're at a good point to proceed. I like to look all the way through that and make sure everything is there. But let's go ahead and ask it to calculate the profit. And the profit is just sales price minus cost. And then we're going to take it a little bit further and take that profit we just computed and divide by the sales price, and that'll give us the margin that essentially says of every dollar of sales, how much do we keep as profits. So we're asking it to compute two variables for us. And so we can run that in, and next what we're going to do is we're going to look and have it summarize the full data set and report which SKU has the highest profits and which one has the highest profit margin. So you can kind of see what that might look like. And so here's our previous one, and it's given us essentially the formulas, and now it's applying it. So as we look through, we can see sometimes it's not always able to see what's on the right, but there's our profit and profit margin included there. So once we've done that, now we're going to ask it to summarize and tell us which ones had the highest profits and the highest profit margin. So profits would be in dollars, right? Which one returned the highest dollars? And the second one would be what has the highest percentage. And so we're able to see that, and we're seeing that for all of the variables. So it gives us description by, sales price and cost, profit, and profit margin. So it looks like the average profit margin is 43%. That's here. And looks like the low profit margin is 30 and the high is 46. Sometimes kind of hard to see. Actually, it looks like the max is higher than that, and it's 49. And we also asked it to tell us which one had the highest profit and which one had the highest profit margin, and so we can see those percentages. I always like to check, see this 49.71 confirm, is consistent with that 49.7, so it looks like it's getting the right things. Usually when we want to look at a distribution, we'll want to look at a histogram, and so we're going to look at the histogram of profit margin for each transaction. Please, if you need details on any of these steps, they're in the notes, or you can use that here. Here it's kind of looks like there's some low ones, and it looks like there's a bunch of high ones. And we could probably ask it to summarize. Let's go ahead and say summarize the bins, which is kind of each of these groups, by 0.025 groupings. And so now it's going to, instead of kind of getting these random ones where we can't see exactly where it is, now hopefully it will do it by 2.5% groupings, and we're going to be able better to see. Now a histogram is frequencies. So it basically says how many profits are in this area. And so here, look what it did. It started at 0 and said, hey, there's a lot of zeros here. But then as we get a little bit bigger, we can see some more numbers there. So I'm going to ask it, instead of providing a table, please provide that result as a histogram. So you can kind of see how I'm working with it. I thought it was going to give me a histogram, but I probably didn't give it a very good instructions. So that's something that I need to work on. But I'm asking what it just did now to provide it as a histogram. I could also tell it where to start. We start at 30% instead of starting at 0. So you can kind of see it included all of them. And so I could go in and further say, hey, start at 30%, end at 50%. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Please start the histogram at 0.30 and end at 0.50 at 0.025 increments. Okay, so the increment gives it the bin size. Now I'm getting more specific. It was trying to give me everything, and that usually is on me, that I didn't give really good instructions. So you could kind of see how that would go. Sometimes we call this bin sizing to work through it that way, but you can kind of see the relative grouping. So how many counts are in each group? I think we have roughly 40 products, and so you can see the distribution of those products. Now we can do the same thing and actually do it in terms of profits instead of margins. Actually, which ones had the profits. So I'm going to ask you to provide a histogram of the profits for each transaction and provide that here and see kind of the count. Now it's going to make some decisions. So look, for some of them there's big margins, and for a bunch of them there's much smaller. Again, sometimes hard to get exactly the bin range or what that includes. I mean, there's a little bit before 50, a little bit after, and so that's something I could specify further. So I'm going to ask it to go ahead and output this so that I can share it with someone else. So that final histogram, I'm going to ask it to provide it as a PNG file and give me that information. And so while it works on that, I can also get the last prompt ready and just ask it to output the prompts that were given to it. Okay, so there's the histogram, and I click here and it will download here or have a problem, but able to download, and then also do the same with Microsoft Word file. I did want to point out one thing while this finishes. This, after each instruction at the end, it provides a Python summary, the code that was written. I really like this because it gives me more specificity instead of assuming it is a black box and I didn't know what it did. This tells me specifically. Now, it really only works if I know Python, but even trying to understand the code, that's a good possibility. And it looks like this is still working on the instruction, but we'll output it. Sometimes it's more work to get it, takes longer for it to print out to a Word file versus to be printed out to the screen. So that completes this lab.